So, colours of Top Gun, there we are.
Marcus,
What the?
have we? What? Chris, what? This is Chris Grainger-Herr, the CEO of IWC, and this is, I mean, you can see it yourself. I don't even know where to start with this. How?
Well, it's next generation setup, I guess. You know, it's truly hybrid this year. This is the start of the global roadshow.
Yes.
Leading on from 2 years of purely digital. This is now physically here, but it's going to go out into the world like we did last year. All of these containers are going to be reused. And plus we have studio space in the back, free streaming studios to come out globally, and also Metaverse. For the first time, you can visit us in VR in the Metaverse or AR, actual reality, right here in Geneva.
I'm a little bit speechless because yesterday we did a video with Adrian from Bark and Jack and George Bamford, and I asked, what's your favourite watches of the fair? And Adrian just said, the IWC booth. And I said, well, that wasn't really what I was asking.
It's not for sale.
It's not for sale. He's going to do a limited edition of it. Chris, I thought I was catching up to you because yesterday Chris wore woodland green everything.
Yeah.
As well as a woodland green ceramic. What were you wearing yesterday? Which one?
Woodland Chronograph, yeah.
The Woodland Chronograph. I thought I was catching up with him today with my shoes, but I'm late again because...
We changed the Tahoe.
Give me the full sartorial reveal
Well,
here.
if you actually followed my Insta properly and you saw the live this morning, you'd know what the order of the day is. We're changing colour every day. It's Mojave tomorrow for your information, so it's all good. No, beautiful Lake Tahoe chronograph inspired by the snow-capped peaks of the Sierras, meeting that big blue sky. Obviously, prime flying environment, but also great watch for winter or summer. It's just a fantastic sports watch. And look with the dark blue.
Yes, I feel
nice
it.
Contrast.
Yeah, this is part of our thing. We have the little segue to fashion, segue to sneakers. Let's talk about that because people are watching this. They want to know what the new novelties are for the year, and they want to know why. Because for me, this kind of goose step to coloured ceramic is unexpected, and it's quite like you're quite committed to this move. Why is this a new vision for IWC?
Well, actually, you saw this is a continuation of what we did with the pilots, where we really introduced everything around the big pilot last year, the pilot's chronograph, and Top Gun is the next phase of that launch, also running up to a certain movie release a little bit later in the year. So this is all about the colors of Top Gun, because we've been into ceramic watches since 1986. We actually invented colored ceramic watches at IWC, making white ones, black ones, even turquoise, burgundy, all sorts in the 80s. So 40 years of development history in ceramics. And when we started to work with our colleagues in the US Navy, we found out, we thought we were all going to come with black low observability watches. Turns out the pilots have quite a different taste. You know, they come on, I don't want a black stuff. Give us color, give us swagger, give us blue dials, give us baby blue stitching. And then we met the Top Gun adversary squadrons who run these sand-colored planes. And we really thought, okay, we're going to match that. And that's when we came up with the first sand-colored ceramic. And then we thought it doesn't stop there. You've got the olive green as an inspiration in the uniforms, in the forest. And then you've got, of course, that winter flying, white naval uniforms, that crispness you get in that white dress uniform.
Always pressed perfectly.
Yes, you remember, I mean, there's nothing as crisp as a white naval dress uniform. And we took that as an inspiration to say, let's expand on these ceramic worlds and bring something that is originally, authentically from an aviation background, but take it into color codes that are really relevant today with outfits of people. I mean, even look at the latest phone releases, it's, you know, olive green, the sand color is everywhere. And, you know, it's that transition, I think, that makes it interesting.
Now, Chris, bridge the gap for me between the last IWC booth, which was many years ago. It feels like 5 years ago. It was about 3. Okay. It was a long time ago, and this booth, because if I can describe that world to you, I'm standing in the old IWC booth, but it was a man's world. It was a cocktail bar. It was very masculine, and yet this is an entirely different, I would say, aesthetic. It's an entirely different atmosphere. It feels like there are more women in the booth today. I don't know whether that's a result of what you built here, but bridge those two worlds for me, because I think people are probably looking at this saying, I love it, but how is that IWC?
Well, I think it's much more IWC than it's been for a long, long time, because really we are an engineering brand, and we're functional watchmaking. We're not métier, we're functional watchmaking. All of our watches have a functional historic background. And when you look at it, there was always a bit of understatement and purity in IWC, and I'm trying to bring the message very much back to that. So the crisp black and white contrast of technical materials, that sharpness, really speaks to who we are as a watchmaker, and our sort of a little bit non-nonsense approach, you know, a bit of form follows function, but in a fun, kind of energetic way. And I think that this reboot, as it were, it really started with a tribute to 3705, with a new Instagram story format, the new graphics, a new website, new social media, really embodies that quite a lot stronger than the luxury gentleman's club that you were referring to,
Yes.
maybe in the Spitfire booth, which was great to show a thematic story of Spitfire flying around the world and 85 years of aviation. But I do feel that sports watches appeal much wider than pilots, aviation enthusiasts, and this is much more in tune with that.
Yes, awesome. Now look, I'm going to quickly move on because again, I'm conscious our audience is like, Andrew, Chris, show me more watches. What else happened? And where's Jess?
We have a few.
Where's Jess? We have a Serotoninium. Jess, please come into the screen.
Yeah,
Please,
now this one, great piece.
This one, I think people are going to get absolutely
yeah.
lose their minds over this one. Jess, please take my sneaker match back. I need to change it to matte black sneakers now. Okay, so Chris, I'm going to hold it up. You're going to talk about it.
Yeah. So starting off with ceramic. Ceramic, an extremely hard surface, 1300 Vickers, practically scratch resistant in everyday terms. Titanium, extremely fracture resistant, light, and just unbreakable basically. Serotoninium, our own proprietary material that has a deep ceramic layer baked into a titanium alloy. That means you can drop the watch, it cannot break, it's not a brittle material, but you have the hardness and the scratch resistance of ceramic. There's not a coating that is deep in the material. Here now we've introduced our 41mm chronograph, which is a super wearable size, Serotoninium crown and pusher, and for the first time ever on the full Serotoninium bracelet. Now this is quick change, so it's simple button release, fine adjustment, Serotoninium engraving, all the lightness of titanium, IWC manufactured movement, sapphire glass case back, grayed out, full package. And I think when it comes to, this is maximum performance material, maximum variability.
And I'm going to talk about wrist feel, because this feels like almost nothing else on Earth. It's a slightly stippled texture, and it's cool on the wrist, but it also it has a very pleasant feeling on the wrist. It's very different to straight ceramic. Yeah.
Do you want to have a quick look at Serotoninium together?
Let's do this, come on. Yeah, we're going to walk.
Anyway, so here you see, really, we brought the entire process to Geneva for you to have a look at. So when the material is cast, when the original alloy is cast, this is actually what stays behind. Look at that rainbow effect you get on it, and that's actually the raw Serotoninium coming out of the smelting process,
basically. Doesn't look workable as a case material in that state.
So the raw ingot basically comes out like this. It's pretty much titanium color. We then forge it using 20-ton pressure, like a huge hammer and anvil. This is done in the Bernese Highlands in Switzerland. And then we receive it in the IWC manufacturing center in Schaffhausen in different diameter Serotoninium rods, which basically already have that titanium color and finish on it. And then we machine it completely at IWC, pretty much the same process as titanium, to really control the flammability, that oil mist that is coming off, super combustible. In the end, the surface finish is sandblasted, and then we kiln fire it, high temperature, secret formula, to develop like bread baking process, that really deep, unscratchable black finish to the material. And that's really how it goes from raw metal to finished item. And you can see the weight difference here. A case in stainless steel versus a case in bronze, for example, and then the Serotoninium.
I'm going to give you guys a bit of I'm going to give you a live tactile feel.
Try the bronze.
So bronze, okay.
On the weight of the rod.
Okay. Yeah, well, this is obviously very heavy, because that's a chunk of bronze there.
And then Serotoninium here.
Interesting.
See the difference.
It is lighter, right? How much lighter is it?
It's about half the weight.
About half the weight. And is there a patina on the Serotoninium now? If we're going bronze versus Serotoninium, is there any change to the material over time?
In Serotoninium, not. Absolutely not. This stays this dark gunmetal grey. The bronze obviously develops patina over time.
Yeah, this is good. Oh. I've got to stop making these noises when I'm admiring watches. Okay.
Cool.
Shall we go over to the professional watch?
This was not what we intended, but when you're with the boss, you just go where you go. How fast Chris Grainger-Herr walks. I love it.
So, 2 minutes for these
2 minutes.
ladies and gents to move on.
Okay.
No, not at all.
What's that? Moses.
It's Moses effect again. Hey, buddy. Nice to see you, right?
How are you?
Good to see you. Good to see you.
I would like to take Chris to the football. He could just part all the crowds for me.
Jonathan Hamburger. Going. I'm out of your way.
Jonathan.
Sorry.
Take
Bye, boys.
more.
Take care.
Why are we here, Chris?
So this is really where it all started. So this is just a little overview of some of our professional military watches we've made over the years, right? This is where it all started off. The SFTI automatic, military exclusive, only to qualified Top Gun graduates, active
So
military.
never consumer, never commercial.
Never available to the public.
Wow. Hidden story.
And the chronograph. And here you have a version of the 50th anniversary of Top Gun Fallon, exclusively available to Top Gun instructors at the top Navy flight school in Fallon. And then a real overview of the different squadron pieces. And you can see the array of taste. You know, you've got bronze cases here for the US Marine Corps.
Yes.
Combined with brown, you know, for the Def Rattler. It's super
Can I
nice.
just say, like, the reason to be a pilot is obviously to help the nation, but it's also to get watches and
100%.
patches.
Royal Australian Air Force.
There we are.
Latest one.
So what percentage of your pilot watches go to the trade? Go to the, can you tell me that?
Enough. Let's put it that way. No, look, for us, this is not just obviously the pride of supplying the community, but it's also about really getting these watches back and being able to test and experience. Nobody flies watches like US Naval Aviation. You have saltwater corrosion, you have heat, you have the desert, you have the cold. They're flying twice a day, 6 to 7 days a week. That's completely different from decorative air forcing. You know, this is like proper.
Right. And do you ever see these watches come back from that sort of a brutalization? And how do they look?
Yeah, I get photos actually every time because we take them into US boutiques and then into service. And we learn from that a lot. And the Serotoninium development is actually a key development based on the insides of ceramics. At what pressure do you start to get actual abrasion on ceramics?
Yes.
And that's where Serotoninium came from, because if you're banging a watch around the cockpit every day, that's ultimately the material that you want. And you remember the shock absorber last year?
Yes, of course.
Shock absorber was a direct development from that. Serotoninium case, BMG spring, freely suspended movement, 30,000 G acceleration forces, resistant, world record in mechanical protection. So that's really directly from this story.
Having just watched season 4 of Drive to Survive, I can confirm it is certified Toto-proof.
Certified Toto-proof.
Yeah. Unlike his headphones.
Yeah, he hates me making references to that. I like it.
So Chris, I've been doing a lot of trucking around Geneva in taxis, and I've seen these Pantone flagpoles everywhere, and they're quite mysterious because it's just sort of a white flag with Lake Tahoe, and there's not really much information apart from IWC and Pantone.
Exactly.
What's this about? We're in a perfect spot for it.
Absolutely, we're in perfect spot with the color tile. So when we started on the Mojave Desert concept, it actually turned out that matching colors across different materials, different finishes, doesn't come easily because you're working with very different reference sets, and we wanted a perfect monochromatic look. It's actually quite a challenge. So we worked with the global color authority that is Pantone to actually certify and engineer our colors to a shared standard that when we're making a rubber strap, a case in colored ceramic, a dial, superluminova, textile, stitching, we have a shared reference set with the Pantone referencing to actually be able to get that really, really subtle monochromatic look across all these different materials.
Yeah.
So Pantone for us to bring that color story to life in an engineered way was a perfect match because it's got that clarity, the graphic sharpness, which is really quite IWC. So when at the first presentation of this concept, I just loved the idea immediately, and that's the result. So.
Something just twigged to me, Chris. You were an architect. I feel like there is this slow but steady move to somehow your worlds coming together. Yeah. Is that what you said when you said this booth is more IWC in some ways than others? Because it is a vastly different vision. It's away from that sort of Boise gentleman's club, wood panel vibe to something far more modern. Yeah. Would you say that this is becoming a Chris Grainger-Herr's world and we just live in it?
It's a team world. It's definitely not just down to me. It is down to us sort of really coming back to what the essence of the brand is, because over time you go through different development stages of the brand, and you go with catch up of a luxury world, etc. But I think today
it's got to be glacial, doesn't it? You can't jump.
Exactly. But we're really trying to find essentially that timeless modernism that is IWC, but done in a really luxurious way.
Yeah.
And that's a different type. It's a Mies type of modernism. And I think when you see the manufacturing center, and I always say to my team when we have that discussion,
I'm going to say it over and over again. Because even the piping on the roof, you go to the bathrooms, the journey to the bathrooms has been thought through.
Where have you been?
There's artworks. I don't know. It's the right place, right? I have one challenge for you though.
Sure.
So I'm a complete Hans Zimmer freak, and if I could show you my Spotify right now, my Discover Weekly is always Hans Zimmer songs throwing up more and more, because Thin Red Line soundtrack is amazing.
Yep.
The Dark Knight soundtrack just gives me chills.
Dune. Oscar winning.
Exactly. So he's a master. Can you find me a spot where we can talk about Hans Zimmer that's more Hans Zimmery than here?
Of course. If we go over to the auditorium, got
Okay.
Hans Zimmer playing Hans Zimmer.
Hands Zimmer.
It's metaversical or Hans Zimmer, as you wish. It's an adjective.
Did you see how balletic that move was?
In a 360 mid-air rotation.
No, with a 40-kilogram nibble in
Look
his
at
hand.
that.
Amazing. Okay, I see.
Serotoninium.
Should we have a seat?
There we go.
Why not?
Like it's planned.
Yeah. It isn't planned. Hans Zimmer and IWC, how does this come together? Because this is yet another sort of poetic layer.
Yeah.
It's to me, it makes sense because some of your ambassadors are actors and they come from epic movies. Where's the connection?
Yeah. I think, again, being a designer and being a very visual brand, there is nothing more atmospheric than actually combining the visual power with the musicality of a soundtrack, you know. And for me, having grown up designing, I always wanted to be a set designer. Maybe that's shown over the years.
Yes.
So I was, at the time, I was in the late 90s, I was totally blown away by The Rock, the movie with Sean Connery and Nicolas Cage.
Incredible.
Because
where the thing rolls off there's one
yeah,
particular scene.
exactly.
Sean
And,
Connery.
you've stolen my Humvee. That's
You
epic
really do
car
love it.
chase, Ferrari 355. Anyway, and I love the soundtrack. Obviously, that being a Hans Zimmer soundtrack, and that just inspired me designing and drawing. So I discovered more and more of his music, and still having done 100+ boutiques for IWC and many of the exhibition booths, manufacturing center, always listening to the mood of the soundtrack, and it really speaks to me. And finally had the chance to meet Hans in 2019, and we've been developing a relationship ever since now. Like one day we're going to work together. And Colors of Top Gun was now the perfect moment to start that, because you've got the strong color mood inspired by the desert, transcended into a Pantone color. What's missing is music.
Yes.
Right, and Hans said, look, let's compose this. Let's create a theme that we can put layers on and variations of instrumentation and influences. You can hear this Mojave Desert that you can listen to now. You hear the sound, a little bit of rattlesnake, you've got the pan flute, and then it goes in Serotoninium, it goes hard, it goes a bit Dark Knight, it goes a bit Gotham City, it goes a bit darker. And it's just perfect.
Yeah.
And then to suddenly
it adds
find
emotion,
yourself,
doesn't it?
yeah.
Because
So suddenly we're on a Zoom
so
call,
emotional.
Hans in his studio, and he's like, I had an idea, and he just plays it to you, and I'm like, oh my God,
on Zoom.
trying to not be starstruck.
I've
Quite
had some
difficult.
good Zoom calls with you that are
But yeah, so he's coming tonight, and then also tomorrow we have an amazing concert where the European Live Arena Tour is coming to Geneva for the first time as a private concert, normally playing to 37,000 people. We're doing that tomorrow exclusively at the Théâtre Le Mans, just for IWC's guests. So.
amazing. Look, Chris, I promise this is my last question. And by the way, if I could choose one word that people describe Chris Grainger-Herr with, it's dynamic. Do you think maybe he's lived up to that today? We were meant to stand in one spot and have a chat. Here we are.
Judgment's out.
My watch has changed. I'm surprised my shoes haven't changed. There is one last thing I want to finish with, Chris, which is a bit of a sensitive one. The world is in another difficult position with what's happening in Ukraine. And I just wondered how, as the leader of a business that has sort of war somewhat entwined with its story, how do you reconcile your watches and the fact that they've played such a part in conflicts, and also a lot of their innovations have come from conflicts, is how do you in your mind reconcile watches with real war and real wartime?
It's a very good question. My personal association is not war or conflict with that, but of course the technical innovation that we put, whether it's into racing or whether it's into aviation, of course that has a functional background for sure. What we've found over the years, we've been partners with Top Gun especially since 2007. What we found is people's association with Top Gun is primarily that of training, of work hard, play hard. The spirit that is represented by Top Gun is very, very different.
Yes.
And what we're trying to do...
entertainment, let's be honest.
It's entertainment
It's
as
a
well.
movie everyone
It's
loves.
cinematic, it's entertainment.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to show here is that codes that come from a functional background, if you think about the apparel industry, if you think about sneakers, there's a lot of influences that come from military, from camo, from bits that have a functional background that have transcended this long ago.
Yes.
Think about the G-Wagon that was ultimately, it's a functional car that has some military connotations.
Yes.
But today it's a much broader statement that has a utilitarian flair to it that is perfectly integrated in our peacetime lifestyle, and this kind of work hard, play hard, that performance element that still comes along with a certain amount of confidence and a certain amount of style. I think that is what resonates today, and that's why I think so much when you think about the latest sort of smartphone colors that have been issued, to apparel, to streetwear, to sneakers, a lot of these codes have crept into that and have a much wider relevance today than just their origins. And I think that is what Top Gun represents. That's the association.
And look, I want to close by saying how tastefully and how wonderfully the brand has pivoted to this place. And I want to thank you for, as usual, taking me on a journey. I expect something when I do an interview with you, and I end up with something in a very different place. So it's always a joy, and congratulations on a wonderful year. And let's go and make some music.
Absolutely. Thank you, buddy.